My name is Dolores. I'm 68 years old, a retired school librarian, and a lifelong knitter. Knitting has always been more than a hobby to me. It's a language of love. When words fail, yarn and needles speak. When my grandson Lucas got accepted into his dream university, I was overwhelmed with pride. He worked so hard, and finally, all his effort had paid off. I wanted to mark this moment with something meaningful, something more personal than a check or a store-bought gift. I wanted to give him warmth, comfort, and a piece of me. So I decided to knit him a blanket. Not just any blanket. I envisioned one that would wrap around him like a hug, one he could take to his dorm room and feel a little less alone on cold nights. I wanted him to know that even far from home, he'd still be surrounded by love. I went to my favorite yarn shop and spent over an hour just running my fingers through skeins of wool. I finally chose a soft, deep blue yarn, rich and calming. It reminded me of the ocean, of peace. I imagined Lucas studying late into the night, wrapped in it, maybe sipping coffee and thinking of home. The knitting took nearly a month. Every evening, I'd sit by the window and work. I counted rows, unraveled mistakes, and started over more than once. I even added a subtle pattern down the center, a woven braid, symbolizing family ties. As I worked, memories of Lucas filled my mind. His tiny hands tugging at my apron, his laughter echoing in my kitchen, his quiet curiosity when he used to ask me how books were made. Every stitch held a piece of that history. When the blanket was done, I gently washed it and misted it with my homemade lavender spray. Just a little. The same scent I used on the bed sheets when he stayed the night as a child. Then I wrapped it in soft paper, tied it with a satin ribbon, and tucked in a handwritten note. Whenever you feel far from home, wrap yourself in this. I'm in every stitch. The morning of his departure, I handed it to him with a hopeful heart. Lucas gave me a quick smile. "Thanks, Grandma," he said, distracted. His phone buzzed. His friends were waiting outside. I tried not to feel the sting of how fast he hugged me, how quickly he turned to leave. From the porch, I watched his car disappear. The blanket sat beside him in the back seat. I felt comforted, thinking maybe it would become part of his new life. Maybe on tough days, he'd hold it and think of me. A week later, my daughter dropped by after visiting him. She carried a familiar package in her hands, the same one I had wrapped with so much care. She said, "He said it smells like old people." She tried to sound casual. I stood frozen. She placed the blanket on the kitchen table like it was any other object. But it wasn't. It was time, effort, emotion. I slowly unwrapped it. The lavender scent was still there, faint but sweet. My fingers brushed the yarn, and my heart ached. He hadn't just left behind a blanket. He left behind me. The blanket sat on my kitchen table for hours. I couldn't bring myself to fold it or put it away. I just stared at it, as if maybe, with enough looking, I could unhear those words. "It smells like old people." I know he didn't mean it to be cruel. He's 19. He lives in a world that moves fast, that doesn't stop to think about the hearts behind handmade things. Maybe he thought it was funny. Maybe he didn't even realize how deep the cut went. But for me, it was like a thread snapping. I picked up the blanket that night and sat in my armchair, the one that I'd spent so many evenings knitting it. I ran my hands over each row, remembering how hopeful I felt when I first began. The excitement of giving him something made just for him, something no store could offer. And now here it was, rejected. I know I'm not as cool as I once was. I don't understand TikTok, I don't speak in abbreviations, but I've lived long enough to know what love looks like, and this blanket was made of it. Every stitch carried my intention, my warmth, my silent wishes for his happiness. The next day, I thought about calling him. I picked up the phone more than once. But what would I say? Why did you leave the blanket behind? Don't you know how much it meant to me? No, that would only make him feel guilty. And I wasn't trying to guilt trip him. I just wanted to understand. I wanted to believe that it wasn't personal. That maybe the scent really did bother him. That maybe he was just trying to make space in his tiny dorm. That maybe he didn't know how to tell me. But even those explanations didn't take the sting away. I kept thinking about the note I wrote him. I'm in every stitch. And maybe that's exactly what he didn't want. Maybe it was too much. Maybe he wanted to feel independent, unanchored. Maybe the idea of home felt like a weight instead of a comfort. That thought made my chest ache. Later that week, I went to my knitting group at the library. The other ladies noticed I was quiet, not my usual self. I didn't bring it up at first, but eventually, over tea and oatmeal cookies, I told them what happened. "Oh, honey," said Ruth, the oldest among us. "Boys don't understand the value of things until much later. They'll come around. It's not the blanket, it's the feeling that I'm fading from his life." And that's what it really was. The blanket was just a symbol. What hurt most was the realization that I'm no longer part of his everyday world, that I've become a memory, a background figure. I went home and gently folded the blanket. I placed it in the cedar chest at the foot of my bed, along with the quilt I made for my daughter when she was pregnant, and the tiny sweater Lucas wore on his first birthday. It didn't belong to him anymore. Not because I was angry, but because I needed to reclaim it. It was still a piece of love, even if it wasn't wanted right now. And maybe, someday, he'll come looking for it.
A few days passed, and I tried to go on as usual. I watered my plants, I read my books, I even baked banana bread, thinking maybe the act of mixing and measuring would settle my thoughts. But everywhere I looked, I saw pieces of Lucas. The cushion he used to lean on during movie nights, the framed photo on the mantel, his kindergarten graduation, gap-toothed and proud, holding a paper diploma, the small clay turtle he made me in art class, still sitting on the windowsill with its crooked painted eyes. His presence was everywhere, and yet he wasn't here anymore. I kept thinking about how quickly he'd grown up. One moment he was tugging at my sleeve, asking for a bedtime story, and the next he was a young man in sneakers and earbuds, shrugging off a gift I had poured my heart into. Maybe that's just how life works. Maybe we all become ghosts in someone else's hallway. My daughter, Emily, called midweek. She wanted to check in. She must have sensed something was wrong. I told her I was fine, that I'd been busy knitting baby hats for the hospital charity. She hesitated before saying, "Mom, I didn't tell Lucas you were upset." "I'm not upset," I said, too quickly. There was silence on the line. Then she said, gently, "He's just figuring things out. He's not very aware of how his actions affect people, especially people who love him." I knew that already, but it still stung. That evening, I took a walk around the neighborhood. The air was crisp and leaves crunched underfoot. The sky was turning gold at the edges, the way it does just before dusk. I passed houses with lights glowing in the windows, families gathered for dinner, laughter drifting faintly onto the street. And I wondered if Lucas ever thought of me, if he missed our Sunday lunches, if he ever told his new friends about his grandma who made the best lentil soup in the world, or if I'd been folded away in his memory, like an old blanket he didn't know what to do with. When I got home, I opened the cedar chest again. The blanket was still there, exactly as I'd left it. I held it to my chest and closed my eyes. I didn't cry, not exactly, but there was a kind of ache in my bones that felt close. The next morning, I decided to write him an email. Not a long one, just a little message to remind him I was here. "Hi, sweetheart. Just wanted to say I hope classes are going well. I saw your university on the news. Very proud of you. I made lentil soup today and thought of you. Love always, Grandma." I didn't mention the blanket. I didn't mention the comment. If he replied, that would be a gift. And if he didn't, well, I'd still be here, waiting, hoping. Because that's what grandmothers do. We keep showing up, even when we're left behind. 2 days passed before he replied. I wasn't expecting much. Just a quick, "Thanks, Grandma," would have been enough. But when I opened my inbox that morning, I saw his name, Lucas, and my heart jumped. His message was short, just a few lines, but I read them over and over again like they were poetry. "Hey, Grandma, sorry I didn't bring the blanket. The lavender smell was just a lot. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I really appreciate it. Things are hectic here, but I'm doing okay. Hope you're good too. Love you." It wasn't an apology in the way I had imagined it, but it was something. It was acknowledgement, and that was more than I had dared to hope for. Still, a part of me felt hollow. The blanket wasn't just about the scent. It was everything behind it. The love, the thought, the time. And I knew he didn't understand that yet. Not fully. But maybe one day he would. Maybe one day he'd look back and realize that what I gave him wasn't just a blanket, but a piece of my heart, stitched row by row. I hit reply and typed slowly, choosing my words carefully. "Thank you for writing, sweetheart. I understand. Lavender's not for everyone. I just wanted you to feel a little piece of home with you. I'm glad you're doing okay. Love you, always. Here when you need me." I didn't send it right away. I let it sit in my drafts for an hour. Then I read it again, took a deep breath, and clicked send. That night, I dreamed of him. In the dream, he was little again, no more than 5 years old, wrapped up in the very same blanket, sitting in my lap. We were in the old house, with the rain tapping gently against the windows. He looked up at me with those wide, trusting eyes and said, "Grandma, this smells like you." When I woke up, there were tears on my cheeks. Not sadness, just something tender and soft and aching. Later that morning, I pulled out a photo album I hadn't opened in years. I flipped through pages of his childhood, his first steps, his gap-toothed smile, his Halloween costumes, a pirate, a robot, a sleepy lion with chocolate on his face. Page after page, my love for him stared back at me. Sometimes love doesn't land the way we expect it to. It misses, or gets misunderstood, or arrives too early before someone knows how to receive it. But that doesn't make it worthless. It doesn't make it go away. That evening, I went to the attic and dug out an old tote bag full of yarn. I found a skein in soft gray, neutral, cozy, understated. I brought it downstairs and sat in my favorite chair. I wasn't sure what I'd make yet. Maybe another blanket. Maybe something smaller. But I knew this. Even if Lucas didn't want what I made right now, I wouldn't stop making. Because that's who I am. And maybe one day he'll understand.
It's been 3 weeks since I got that email from Lucas. No more messages since then, but that's okay. I don't expect daily updates. I know he's adjusting, trying to find his place in a new world. College is overwhelming, loud, fast, filled with people who have no idea where he comes from or how he was raised. I just hope he's eating something other than instant noodles. Meanwhile, I finished the gray scarf. It wasn't planned. I just picked up the needles one evening and let my hands guide me. I didn't follow a pattern. I didn't count stitches. I simply knit, row after row, until it was long enough to wrap around my neck twice. It's a quiet scarf. Soft, warm, modest. Like me. I wore it to the market yesterday. A woman at the flower stall complimented it. She asked if I sold my work, and I smiled and said no. I only knit for people I love, I told her. And it was true. Every stitch I make still carries a memory. And Lucas, whether he wants it or not, is part of every project now. Even in the gray scarf. Especially in the gray scarf. It's funny how yarn remembers things we try to forget. The house has been quieter than usual. No more text messages, no impromptu visits, no clattering footsteps down the hall. Emily has her own life. Lucas is gone. And me? I'm learning to live with the echo. I've started writing a little more. Journaling. Nothing fancy, just thoughts, feelings, little pieces of myself I don't want to lose. Yesterday I wrote, "Love doesn't vanish when it's unreturned. It waits. It softens. It weaves itself into silence. I'm not angry anymore. Not even hurt, really. Just adjusting." One afternoon, while reorganizing the linen closet, I found a box labeled Lucas Baby Things. I hadn't opened it in years. Inside were his old bibs, a tiny pair of socks, a blue beanie I knitted when he was born. It was faded and frayed, but it still smelled faintly of chamomile. I held it in my hands and smiled. That little hat had once fit in the palm of my hand. Now he was 6 feet tall and figuring out how to be a man.
That's the hardest part of loving someone from a distance. You raise them to grow wings, but part of you hopes they'll still look back. Later that evening, I took out the blue blanket, the one I had made him. I spread it gently across the foot of my bed. I didn't cry. I didn't ache. I just let it be what it was. A beautiful thing that didn't reach its intended home. And that's okay. Maybe one day Lucas will come home for the holidays. Maybe he'll be colder than he expected. Maybe he'll ask sheepishly, "Grandma, do you still have that blanket?" And if he does, I'll have it ready. Folded, clean, lavender-free, if that's what he wants. Because love isn't about making someone accept what you offer. It's about keeping space open for when they're ready. And I'll always have space for him. It was a Sunday afternoon in early December when the knock came. I wasn't expecting anyone. The sky was overcast and I'd just pulled a tray of ginger cookies from the oven. The scent of cinnamon filled the house, and I remember thinking, this smells like a proper grandmother's kitchen. When I opened the door, Lucas was standing there. He looked older, not in a physical sense, but in the way he carried himself. Shoulders a bit heavier, eyes a little more thoughtful. He smiled, hands shoved into his jacket pockets like he used to do when he was nervous as a child. "Hi, Grandma," he said. "Lucas, I wasn't expecting you." He shrugged. "Thought I'd surprise you. Finals are done and I missed you." The words settled over me like snowfall, gentle and unexpected. I stepped aside, and he walked in. The house hadn't changed, but I wondered if it felt smaller to him now, less magical, or maybe it was still what it had always been, a place of quiet love waiting for him. We sat in the kitchen. I poured tea. He ate 3 cookies without hesitation, like no time had passed. And then, without me prompting, he said, "I've been thinking about the blanket." I froze, cup halfway to my lips. He continued, "I didn't understand it at the time. I mean, I did. I knew you made it for me with love, but I didn't really get it. College made me realize how cold things can feel, even surrounded by people." I nodded slowly, letting him speak. There were nights I wished I had brought it, not just because of the cold, because I missed this. You, the feeling of being remembered. He reached into his backpack and pulled out something else, a new photo of him and his friends, all smiling, arms slung around each other. He said, "I want to put this up in your living room, so you know I'm good, and then I'm still your Lucas." My eyes welled, but I didn't let the tears fall. I simply reached across the table and placed my hand over his. I whispered, "You've always been my Lucas." Later, as he was getting ready to leave, I asked, "Do you want the blanket now?" He hesitated. "If you want me to have it." I smiled. "I made it for you. I always wanted you to have it, but this time, no lavender." He laughed, a deep, genuine laugh, and it filled the kitchen like sunlight breaking through clouds. I went to the cedar chest and retrieved it. Still neatly folded, still soft and full of memory. When I handed it to him, his arms wrapped around it like he was hugging me through the fabric. At the door, he turned and said, "Thanks for not being mad, for not making me feel bad." I said gently, "I don't need to. Life will teach you everything I couldn't." And then he was gone, the blanket under his arm, the cold wind nipping at his heels. As I closed the door, I felt lighter, not because anything dramatic had changed, but because something had been restored. Not just a gift accepted, but a connection healed. Love, after all, always finds its way back. Do you enjoy stories with emotion and twists? Then like, subscribe, and activate the bell. Here, every word touches you.